Past and Present Mistakes by UnknownFilters. Celestia agrees to let one law Luna wants to bring back make it to the streets of Equestria once more. She finds that she quickly grows to regret that decision after a presentation shows that Luna wants to bring back public executions. Chapter 1 of 1. A Stupid Promise. Luna cleared her throat and levitated a stick she found in the royal garden to act as the pointer as she directed it to the diagram she created as Celestia and Luna stood in the throne room during Solar Court. Celestia's assistant, Raven, had been gawking and her eyes were wide open for the past 5 minutes. Her tiny brain was trying to understand Luna's presentation. It takes a tiny brain to pay attention to Luna. Luna had only been back at Equestria for a few months. She had been trying to reinstate certain laws and punishments that she thought could still be of use in the modern age. Luna gave Celestia many ideas that Celestia turned down. Luna started to sink back into the depression that had once consumed her to turn her into Nightmare Moon until a week ago, when Celestia agreed to pass the next law she decided to bring forth as a way to make her feel better. And that, dear sister, is why public executions should come back, Luna finished with a big knowing grin. Celestia's face stayed neutral, but inside she was cursing loudly at how stupid she felt to let herself fall into this sort of trap. Luna knew damn well that Celestia couldn't turn down her promise. Celestia, of course, was a princess, ostensibly, so she straightened her back, held her head high, and glared down at Luna with a stare of 1,000 suns, which didn't seem to affect Luna in the slightest. Luna, what the actual fuck is wrong with you? Now Raven had to gawk at her leader. The two guards near the throne room found it very hard not to react to the princess, of all ponies, swearing. Luna's smile seemed to grow bigger, and her stance seemed cockier than it had in centuries. Luna quickly teleported the presentation board away and moved closer to her sister. "You promised us, sister," Luna said sweetly with a flutter of her eyes. Celestia gritted her teeth and slowly stepped down from the throne to her sister. Her wings were flared up to make a more intimidating presence. "Yes, I'm aware. But you can't seriously think that public execution is going to work to solve, well, anything," Celestia bombed. Luna rolled her eyes and made a law-binding document appear with a quill and ink. "Just sign the paper already," Luna complained. Celestia smiled as she remembered that there was another law also stating that executions were no longer to happen. So if Luna's law went into effect, it would be outruled by her own law that she made 500 years ago. She chuckled to herself as she signed her name, before setting off to another part of the castle, to a group of important nobles who handled that sort of thing. She shook her head and sat back down, her body relaxing. She briefly lit her horn to make sure the sun was progressing through the day as usual. "Luna, Luna, Luna," Celestia said with a smile, making Luna very confused. "You probably didn't know this, but I made executions illegal 500 years ago. Your law is useless compared to that one. It will be outruled because of your current status in Equestria. You don't have the same control of the law as I do, but you will soon." Luna's confused face morphed into a smirk. That threw Celestia off by a lot. "Did you not think we did our research?" Luna asked. "With your signature, it means the law can't be outruled. If you actually read the fine print of the law, it clearly states that executions will become legal again if they are controlled by the government to make sure the law is put into effect." Celestia's eyes twitched. One of her wings fluttered. Then the other. "Oh shit," she muttered. Luna nodded in agreement and turned around. "Oh shit, I quite agree." and turned around, starting to trot towards the exit to the throne room. Oh shit indeed. 2 days later, Twilight Sparkle breathed in the fresh air of Equestria as she stepped out into the morning sunshine. She looked around Ponyville and smiled. Her new home couldn't be better. She was so lucky to live in Ponyville. Twilight? Twilight snapped out of her thoughts and looked over her shoulder to see Spike running towards her from the Golden Oaks Library. She smiled as she moved to stand beside her. Who's smiling at who and who's standing beside who?
I thought you were staying inside today. Have you had a change of heart? She asked.
He shook his head and pointed further into town. She followed his gaze to see a crowd gathering around a signpost as a royal guard hammered something to it, then took off in the air.
Are you not curious about what the announcement says? It must be pretty important if the royal guard have to post it around town,
Spike commented.
You're right, Spike,
Twilight said. She used her magic to move Spike onto her back, and together they moved into the crowd.
I hope nothing bad has happened.
They weaved their way through the front of the group, and Twilight squinted to see the announcement. New law in effect. Public executions are now legal, if in control by the equestrian government. Approved by Princess Celestia and Princess Luna. Twilight opened her mouth to try and find some positive in that situation. One of those words must be a typo. But all that came out was a confused jumble of words from a pony whose mind seemed to have melted from the information.
Have they lost their fucking minds?
A raspy voice cut through the crowd. Everyone turned to see a very angry rainbow-maned Pegasus staring at the announcement from the air. Twilight snapped out of whatever trance she was in and looked up to her friend, who seemed ready to stage a very big mutiny.
Are they really going to sit around here and let the princesses do this to us?
No, the crowd collectively cheered out.
Are we going to let them kill fellow ponies?
Rainbow Dash said, being swept away in the excitement. No, the crowd cheered again. Rainbow Dash pointed to Chantalot, I'm guessing Cantalot, in the distance.
Now let's go up there and show them who's boss, she continued.
The crowd cheered for their new savior, and Twilight wanted to sink into a very dark hole and never come out. A whole crowd of ponies started galloping towards the train station as the first train to Cantalot pulled in. Celestia stared at the crowded streets of Cantalot, filled up angry ponies, demanding answers from her balcony in Cantalot Castle. She bit her lip and frantically tried to understand what the next plan of action should be. She saw Luna out of the corner of her eye watch the city with amusement.
Is something about this amusing to you, Luna?
She snapped. Luna chuckled and nodded as the roars of outraged ponies filled the air.
You realize the entire country is going to find a way to dethrone us for your stupid law? That's a hell of a lot of ponies.
I know, isn't it exciting? Luna said. She let a little squeak of excitement.
Exciting?
Exciting, Celestia said with outrage.
Why are you so happy about this? 1,000 years on the moon is pretty boring.
Celestia groaned and collapsed to the floor, praying to a lost city of Alicorn she didn't believe in for Equestria to not go into ruin because some pony got bored.
Speaking of laws, can we become a dictatorship again? We find that politics was much easier that way.
Shut the hell up, Luna. The end. Oh boy, that took some searching, I must admit. Seriously, does anyone have any good suggestions?